Hello guys, my name is Khan, and this video is the continuation of my last video. In my last video, we have discussed that how you can download a chart from Shiny dashboard. The thing to note here is that there are few more things that I have added and have relocated some a button. So if you guys have remembered that in my previous video, the download graph button was under the main panel. But what I have done is that I have removed that button from the main panel and added that button into my sidebar panel. In the same way, previously we tried to download the graph, but in this video, I also have added a new radio buttons that will allow us to also import the dataset from this export the dataset from this dashboard in a CSV format or in a text format, and the data related to this graph related to the given year. So whatever data you will select, this data table will get updated. And suppose if you also want to import the data out of a tab out of Shiny dashboard, then how you can do that? Suppose if I click, so suppose now I have selected suppose year 2018, and this is the data related to the 2018 I have. So, and if I want to export this data from this R Shiny dashboard, so I can simply click it, and you can see that the data that I have exported have the file name data 2018.csv. In the same way, if I export a txt file for the same 2018, so my file name is data 2018.txt, and this data got exported into the default folder of your browser. So in this video, we will also add this data table in our main panel. Then I will add I will relocate my graph button on sidebar panel, and I will add these radio buttons, and then I will add a button to export the data. So now what I will do, I will just close this window. I will close this R2 and I will start making. So what I will do, I will go to my folder. So this is the folder that I have for you guys. So you guys remember that I will be continuing from my code file which I have made in my last video. So I will just open it up. So this is the same code file that I have used for my last video. So again here I will start by giving a brief overview. The first thing what I will do, I will execute this code to see what dashboard that we have created in our last video. Control enter. So we have you can see we have a graph, we have a download link here, but I want to move this download button into my main panel, in my sidebar panel, and then I will add radio buttons, and then I will add another button to download the data, and under my main panel I will also add my data table here. So this is exactly the same dashboard that I have created in my previous video. So I will remove this, and I will execution. So I will go back to the code, and here a thing that you may have remembered that I used to use library read.r to read CSV file, but here in this video I will not use this library. Therefore I am commenting out. I will use built-in R command for which we don't need any library. Because I'm using that function because we will be using that function in later videos to write tables. So what I will do, so there is a built-in command which is read.csv, and if you read.csv, you have to mention here header. Header means that the first row of the dataset is representing the variable names. So here you can see that I will be using read.csv, which is come up with the R. You don't need any library for that function. Enter. So you can see. So I will execute it again. You can see I have a data object now, which is the same as we have before. I'm using the same data set that we have used before. But here I will show you one more thing, that there is another function which can also be used to import data sets. And that function is, suppose if I want to create another object, data2, which will be the same as our data object, but I will be using a new function to import the CSV file. So I will be saying read.table, and under the read.table I will be mentioning the file name that I want to import. So I have already mentioned my working directory. So what R will do, it will go to my working directory and will see for this dataset, and after that I will be saying a header is equal to true, just like my previous command. And then after that I will be saying here, when I will be using read.table, so R don't know that which kind of table. Is it a comma separated file, is it a tab delimited file, or is it a text file? So in order to mention that, you have to, after comma, you have to say that the separator, as it is comma separated file, I will be using these inverted commas and I will be using this comma. So by mentioning this comma, this the read.table function will come to know that I'm importing a CSV file. And now if I will do that, enter, you can see that I have two data objects which are exactly the same, but I have used two different functions. So just like read.table, we also have a function write.table. The write.table will be used to export datasets from R, and I will be using write.table function later in my videos when we will be using the button to export the dataset from R. So another thing is that if you guys remember that we have a download link that we have used under our main panel, but as I said, that I don't want especially I don't want to use it as a download link. I want to use it as a download button. So I will just change it to download button. And now suppose if I execute this code, you can see that previously here there was a link here, but now we have a button here. So I will close it. And the next thing I don't want this button to be shown in main panel. I want to be shown in my sidebar panel. So what I can do, I will be simply cut this part of the function and will go to my sidebar panel and I will paste it here. So you can see that now we have a download button under our sidebar panel. But here is very important thing to note, that whenever we have created this select input radio button, we have created this input IDs. But when we are using download button under the sidebar panel, this DWD is not an input ID, actually it's an output ID. So this is a bit tricky when you will be using download button or download link under the sidebar panel. be careful that this DWD is not a input ID, it's a output ID, and this output ID will be coming from your server function. And now let's see if I execute this. Control A, enter. Now you can see that that button which was in main panel now is moved to our sidebar panel, and it's still working the same way, allow us to download the data. So I will close it again and I will go back to my. So now the next thing is that below that download button, I want to create radio buttons that will allow us to create radio buttons that which kind of data you want to import. We want to import data as a txt file or a csv file. So in order to do that, I will be saying okay, radio button, and after that radio button, I will be creating an ID and I will be calling it as D for data type, and after that comma, and then I will what the label that I want to give. So my label I want to give that select the data type, and after the data type the radio buttons that I want to create, or so for that I will be saying C. I will be creating a vector, and within the vector I will be first mentioning CSV. So the first button will be representing CSV file, the second button will be for TXT. So now let's see if I execute my code. Control A, control enter. Now you can see that I have created a radio button which will allow us to select the data type we want to export from this dashboard. And after below this radio button, I will be also creating another download button which will be used to download the data. So I think we can create right now that too. So I will be mentioning comma. So as you can see that everything is written down under the sidebar panel. So within the sidebar panel, I want to create another download button. And the download button, as you can see under the download button, we have the first thing we have to mention output ID. We haven't created output ID for this download button, but I will call it suppose DWD data. So DWD means download underscore data, and after that I will be mentioning download. So this will be the next text will be appear as the title of the button. So I'm saying download is selected your data. So now let's see if I execute this code. Control A. But here the thing is, before execution, that this DWD data is a output variable which I will create under my server function. I haven't created this till now, but I will create later in this video. So now you can see that we have this download button, but this download button will not do anything because I haven't created the output ID in my server function. So this next thing is that I will go back to my code and I will create other things. So the first thing that I also want to create, that I want to add a data table in my main panel. So first thing I will code for that. So I will just say first I will create data table for main panel. So in order to do that, what I will do, I will be saying creating an object, output dollar, and I will be naming as year underscore tab. So year table, and I will be using this sign. After that, I will be saying render table. And within the render table, I will first do some data manipulation. I will be doing the same data manipulation which I have done before. Actually, I am using a CSV file, so it's better to read.csv function now. So I will not be using read_csv. So it's better to change it to read.csv. And then what I am doing is that doing some data manipulation. I'm changing the variable name into log of employment rate, and then I'm selecting only the data which is according to our input, which this input $year is coming from our slider panel, where we have used this select input. Select input have input ID year. So whatever we are selecting, we want that only that data of that year data should be shown in our main panel. So once that thing will be done, the last data table will be captured under this render table and will be shown in our main panel. But in order to show that thing, this year tab output in main panel, we have to mention under our main panel that okay, I also want to table output, and I will be mentioning here the output ID that I want to show. So now if I control C and control A and then enter, actually I have to stop execution, because whenever I am executing this code, it's creating a dashboard on a browser, and in order to stop this, I have to stop this function every time. So now you can see that the table related to the data related to the selected year is shown here. But if I change it to 2009, you can see the data got updated according to the year 2009. Now the next thing is that I want to export this data out of this dashboard through this button. So if I click this button, I want that it allow the user to download this data. So in order to do that, I will be using again under my server function, I will be using again functions like download handler in order to that will allow us to download the data. So first thing is that I will be creating an output ID. So output $, and this ID will be the same as which I have mentioned under the radio button, the second radio button, download data. So I will just copy it and mention here, and then I will use this assign sign, and then I'll be using download handler function, and within that function we will be using further two functions. The first function will be the file name, which will allow us that what will be the file name that whenever you will select some data and when you will download it, it will give some file name to that data. So I will be saying file name is equal to function, and after that function I will be using these curly brackets, and I will define my function here. So my function will be that I want to use will be named as, so I will start with the paste. So the paste function will allow us to combine different input IDs so that I will be able to write down the file name. So the first thing of my file will be always that I want to see that whatever I will download, the file name start with the data, and then I will be saying the next thing will be that it will show me with the data that which year data I have downloaded. So that thing will be keeps on changing. So for that I will be using input. So that I will be using input $year, which will be this year ID will be, as I have told you guys, will be coming from select input. And the last thing of my file will be the file type, whether it will be CSV or TXT. And for that it will be also coming from input, because I have allowed the user from the radio button to select the data type $, and it will be D type. D type is the data type input ID that we have created in our sidebar panel. So if you guys notice here in the radio button, we have told that select the data type, and the data types option that we are giving is CSV or text, and the ID is D type. So this is the thing. So after this curly brackets, the next thing is that I want to also tell about content. So the first thing will be the file name, but what will be captured under that file name? For that we will be using content is equal to, and then we will be using another function, which will be the function, and within the function we will be given an argument file. This file is actually will be capturing the file name that we have created under the file name function. And again, after that I will be using curly brackets, and within those curly brackets I will be telling that from where the import the data, and if there is any data manipulation I want to do it. So I will be doing it again. I will be again importing the same data set, doing some manipulation, and then we'll be selecting the data based on the input year we have selected. So I'll be just copying it. So another thing to note here is that I'm writing the same lines again and again. You can remove this repetition by using the reactive function. So the reactive function, in that reactive function you don't have to keep on writing down the things again and again. I have already discussed reactive function in my previous videos, so if you guys want to know how you can use reactive function here, you can go back to that video. But I am not going to reactive function because I want to, so it will be a bit easier for you guys here to understand what I am doing. And after that I have to, so this is the last data object which will be get imported from this content, but in the end I have to tell art that either it will be a CSV file or a text file. So in order to do that I will be using a if condition. So I will be saying if input $D type is equal to CSV, then I'll be saying, as I said, that I will be using a function write.table, and after that write.table I will be saying the data that I want to import is this data object, data, and after that I will be saying file name is equal to, again this object will be coming from file, so I'll be saying again is equal to file, because this object file will be capturing, this argument will be capturing the file name that we have created here. So I'll say comma, and then I want to say the separator is equal to comma, so it will write down a CSV file, because if the data type is equal to CSV, then it will execute this command. In the same way, I will just copy this line again, paste it here again, and I will say if txt, then it will write down a table and it will get the file name from here, which will be suppose it will be, if it will be a txt file, it will be written as data suppose 2007.txt, and for that, for text file we don't need, we just need inverted commas without anything within it. This was missing. So now I think if I execute my code, everything will be fine. To finish this previous process again, enter again. So you can see this is the dashboard now, and now I think if I use my download button, it will allow me to download the data. So as you can see that it have created a CSV file. Let me check my code. I think I have got an error. I will just let me check my, sorry, actually it was not downloading the data in a proper format, because when I have mentioned the file name, after the file name, I have to tell that the separator between these texts will be dot. So in order to do that, I will be mentioning dot here. I'll be stopping my last operation of the dashboard. Now we'll execute again. So this is the dashboard now, and now if suppose if I select any year, suppose 2017, and I want to import this dataset as a CSV file, if I click it, you can see that it have downloaded the data file in a CSV format, and if I want to do it in a text format, you can see it have downloaded the data in a text format. In the same way, you can download it in a PDF, tab delimited, many other format through Shiny. So in this video, we have captured that how you can use download buttons within the sidebar panel, and how you can import the datasets by using that download button. Before ending this video, I will again emphasize that whenever you will use the download button under the sidebar panel, the download button, this ID, because many times user get confused and thought this is the input ID. This is not the input ID, because most of the other functions like select input, radio button, these IDs are input IDs, but under the download button, when you will be using the download button in sidebar panel, this ID will be output ID, and once you will mention any output ID here, you have to make an output object in the Shiny server then. So, and again in this video, we have used the functions like read.csv, read.table, write.table, and if you guys want to know more about these functions, these are very good functions which are built-in functions. You don't need to use any library, external library for that. So suppose for write.table, if I go to help, and you can go here in the help, and you can see that there is a very good description about write.table, and it will allow you to change your data such a way that you will be able to import data from R Shiny in many other formats too. So there is a very good description about write.table function here. Again, thank you for watching the video.